Hello, my name's Reverend Day Zhang. I'm the organizer of the Belmont Zen Center in St. Clairsville, Ohio. I'm also a member of the clergy team of Muddy Waters Zen Temple in Royal Oak, Michigan. I'm making this video to provide a little bit of an update about what's going on with the situation, with things getting organized and started with Belmont Zen Center. I've gotten some emails, some communication from folks who are interested in the question of when they're actually going to start to be meetings. They're actually going to start to be public events, what with restrictions changing relative to COVID and things sort of opening up more and people getting vaccines and these sorts of things, and they're interested in actually starting to have things happening that they can participate in, which is a completely understandable question under the circumstances. So what I primarily want to do in this video is to try to explain why that can't happen quite yet. And this gets into some things related to the public health situation and COVID, but it also gets into some kind of more personal family stuff I'm going to have to disclose about a little bit, though those things are sort of also related to COVID or affected by COVID. When I was ordained as a member of the Buddhist clergy in April of 2016, my intention was to work with my teacher for a couple of years, get my sea legs, so to speak, figure out what was going on, make sure I knew what I was doing, start thinking about how to have a place where people could come to practice, to establish something locally as I was migrating back and forth between Royal Oak and here in Belmont County, Ohio. So my intention was to take a couple of years to do that, and I was hoping by maybe summer of 2018 or so, I'd be in a position to kind of open things up, to actually start to have meetings and work with people and provide a space and an opportunity for people to be able to learn about Buddhism and to practice for themselves. That was kind of the plan. What happened after that, though, as I was making those preparations and just about to the point of creating this space, doing all the fancy painting and kind of getting the things that were necessary and sort of planning and so on. Right about that point, one of my children, my son and his family, moved back from South Korea for my son to be able to go to graduate school. He had sort of plateaued and reached the sort of maximum possible of what his professional opportunities were with the kind of work that he was doing in South Korea. He was going to come back to the United States, go to graduate school, and sort of move on from there. So they moved in with us for what we thought was the summer, but then it turned out the best opportunity that he had for graduate school was actually an online program, and economically it made the most sense for them to just live with us while he was working through this program. And so that kind of put things on hold. It slowed down the planning. That's okay. Then COVID hit while he's in the midst of working on the graduate program. He finished last August. But because of the kind of training that he got, and now with the situation with kind of the world economy and the U.S. economy and these sorts of things, he has not yet been able to find a job, as so many other people are dealing with the same sorts of things. While some jobs are certainly opening up, other kinds definitely aren't yet, and opportunities are still very tight for employment in some fields. So the result of that is, I'm going to move the camera here so you can see the meeting space that I put together for Belmont Zen Center to use is still substantially full of boxes that came home from Korea that are their worldly possessions that they brought over with them to set up a household with, that they obviously haven't yet been able to set up a household with. So the space is not really usable at this point. There's the additional complication of it's not really very amenable for practice to have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old sort of pounding over your head. This location is in the the bottom level of my home. So there are children right there. You could hear them any minute now. You could hear them. That's not really a very conducive environment for practice. And then we have the additional complication, especially in the current state of affairs here in Belmont County, and the unfortunately abysmally low rate of people actually getting shots that we have. And obviously 4 and 6 year olds not vaccinated. Everybody else in the house is vaccinated, but obviously the little kids can't be yet. And so I'm very, very leery about the idea of having people where I can't sort of know what their status is coming into the house. Given that I've got 2 little kids here who don't have shots. So I'm very, very leery about that sort of thing. Until the circumstances change, at least in terms of using this space in the way I was intending to be having things happening with, people being able to come here and practice and learn and borrow books from the lending library and, all the kinds of things that I'm intending to do with the center once we can actually get started. Those things are still, unfortunately, for the time being on hold until there's kind of a change in the family situation. Now, that being said, I've got shots. I'm not worried about going out and doing things. So here's the request I'm going to make. I've been investigating renting somewhere, at least temporarily, to be able to get things started. When I started this shortly after COVID created the lockdown here in the United States, because I've had this suspicion that there might be people who would feel like they were looking for something, they needed support. I started doing the paperwork to get myself registered with the chaplaincy offices of the local hospitals and this sort of thing, so that if somebody was sick and needed support, I could even come in there and do that sort of thing. Thankfully, that didn't end up needing to happen, or at least it hasn't yet. I've, in an effort to try to get things going, I have been looking into some options in terms of rental property. I don't have a lot of money to spend on that, and my goal with starting this was not supposed to be a money-making endeavor at all. My goal with the Belmont Sin Center was for it to be utterly and completely nonprofit and have very, very minimal expenses, so that there wouldn't be a need for a lot of people making donations and money changing hands, because that's not the way I think about how the Dharma should work. But the result of that is I don't have a lot of money that I could sort of sink personally into renting. And if you're not too familiar with commercial rental property in St. Clairsville, ever since fracking started, prices are pretty high and options are kind of limited. And so if somebody out there has a suggestion for a place that could be rented, or somebody has a space that they would be willing to donate, whether it's even, at least for the next couple of months here, even something that would be like, if somebody's got like a covered area outside, that would be even better, if lots and lots of ventilation. Somewhere in the St. Clairsville area, if there's somebody can suggest a place that, a reasonably sized space that could be rented inexpensively, or somebody's got a space they'd be willing to allow to be used for this sort of thing. Somebody's got a nice, maybe an outbuilding that they've got that they're not using for anything, that's sort of in decent shape but is kind of sitting there empty, or again some sort of maybe covered outdoor space that maybe for a month or two, maybe until sort of mid-fall, could potentially be used. I'd love to hear about those sorts of things, so that I could go out and get started until this space is actually usable. So if anyone has any thoughts about that, please communicate with me. Let me know if you have any leads, any suggestions. I would love to hear about that sort of thing. I'm going to continue in the meantime to, once or twice a week, be posting things to Facebook, keeping the website updated, trying to provide links to teachings and to resources to be able to keep people who are interested having access to something to keep them going until we can actually start to really meet in person and get organized. So again, if anyone has any suggestions for any alternatives that we could actually start using outside of this room right away, please communicate with me. I'd love to hear that. And in the meantime, please let me know if there's any outreach that I can provide, if there are any resources that you need, any questions that you have. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I look forward to hearing from anyone who would like to receive any help, guidance, suggestions in especially getting started with practice on the Buddhist path.